Welcome to the How of Business with your host, Henry Lopez, the podcast that helps you start, run, and grow your small business. And now, here is your host.
Welcome to the How of Business podcast. This is Henry Lopez. On this episode, I'm going to discuss one of the simplest and most effective tools for prioritizing your to-do list, the Eisenhower Matrix. I'll explain how the Eisenhower Matrix, a classic, simple, yet powerful tool, can help you separate the urgent from the truly important so you can stay focused on what moves your business forward and avoid getting stuck in constant reaction mode and the exhaustion that can come from not being able to get everything done on your to-do list. I'll also share a free download tool that'll help you use the Eisenhower Matrix to prioritize your day. You can find all of the How of Business resources, including the show notes page for this episode, and learn more about my one-on-one and group coaching programs at thehowofbusiness.com. I also invite you to join the How of Business community on Patreon, and please subscribe wherever you might be listening so you don't miss any new episodes. As small business owners, we're trying to juggle dozens, if not hundreds of decisions on a daily basis. And unlike in our previous life as employees, for myself as a corporate employee, someone else or some group of people directed my work to a big degree. What project to work on, what opportunity to pursue, what tasks I had to get completed by a certain date. But then when we become business owners, there's no one else dictating that for us. We have to manage all of that. And so inevitably what happens is we end up with the biggest to-do list. And it all seems like it's critical items, critical decisions that have to be made, important tasks that have to be completed. But the reality is that we simply don't have enough hours in the day to get to it all. And the other reality is that sometimes we don't need to get to it all. We have to focus on what's most important. But without some kind of a prioritization system, it's pretty hard to do that. And so you usually, as most of us do, you surrender to just kind of going down the list and checking things off. Sometimes we will purposely, I'm guilty of this as well, go to the kind of the easiest one next, putting off the things that you know are going to take a lot of work and effort or that are hard decisions to make. But that approach just leads to continuous overwhelm and feeling like you can never get it all done. And that just doesn't work. It certainly doesn't scale. So you need a prioritization method. And what I'm sharing with you today is the Eisenhower Matrix. This technique of applying the Eisenhower Matrix, I think, works best for deciding right now, today, this hour, this morning, what do I work on next from the list of things that I have to work on. And that's where it comes into play. It's a prioritization, a task prioritization tool to help you be that much more effective and to take control of your to-do list. So we've developed a free tool that you can download from the show notes page from this episode called the Task Management Tool, and it'll apply the Eisenhower Matrix and give you a very simple to use graphical app that'll help you with prioritizing your task. I encourage you to download that free tool from the show notes page of this episode at thehowofbusiness.com. What I want you to think about and accept and understand is that being busier or applying more hours, it doesn't necessarily equate to productivity. It definitely doesn't scale. And so I want to share with you the Eisenhower Matrix, if you haven't used it before, as a way of working more intentionally instead of reactively and just continuing to put items on your to-do list and working them sequentially. It becomes overwhelming, it becomes exhausting, it becomes paralyzing, and we need something more. And that's where the Eisenhower Matrix can really help. Prioritization and learning how to do it best is really a superpower for business owners. It's related, of course, to the broader topic of time management, but that's the limited resource that we have, is that time that we have on a daily and weekly basis. And we don't want to throw any more at it. Certainly there are crunch times when we do, but we have to get away from this constant urgency, constant fire drill that leads to exhaustion and stagnation. And without a method, we default to running to the next fire, answering emails immediately, handling interruptions as they come our way. We're teaching our staff, if we have a staff, to immediately come to us with questions instead of grouping them or batching them or trying to solve them themselves. We create this environment of chaos. And that leads to all kinds of problems, including decision fatigue that can happen very quickly to us as business owners. So it's a mindset shift to a big extent. You probably don't need to do everything on your to-do list. You need to focus on the most important things, the most urgent things, the tasks that are most related to your big rocks and that overall are going to move the needle on your business that hour, that day, that week. On episode 569, I introduced the concept of big rocks, and hopefully you've been applying that or some other method to prioritizing your week, tied with some level of weekly planning. I always recommend either Sunday evening or Monday morning, where you're identifying here are the 3 to 5 big rocks, the most important things that I need to accomplish this week. And just again, for a quick definition, a big rock is something that I can complete in about half an hour to 2 hours, and then ideally I schedule time for those big rocks as appropriate, or portions of those big rocks where I need to bring my full attention and the best of myself. So those big rocks get scheduled first. That doesn't change. But then daily, as you are planning and trying to figure out what to do next, as you're working your to-do list, as you're deciding this new item, this new task that has fallen onto my plate, how do I prioritize that? Do I jump on that now, or do I put it on the list? Do I wait? That's where quickly using the Eisenhower Matrix, I think, can really improve your productivity and help you manage your time and help you prioritize. So big rocks define your direction quarterly and then weekly. Where do I want to go this week? What's most important? And a tool like the Eisenhower Matrix defines your daily or even hourly execution. So as I mentioned, Dwight D. Eisenhower, who was the World War II Supreme Commander and of course then U.S. President, he is credited with developing the Eisenhower Matrix. And here's a quote from him about this that I think is relevant. Quote, "What is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important," end quote. I think there's a lot in there about managing a business. And we need to instead create and nurture an environment that on most days operates without chaos. So Eisenhower used this approach, this matrix, when he was trying to manage competing priorities across the military, the politics of the time, and all of his global responsibilities. This approach, the Eisenhower Matrix, interestingly enough, as was Big Rocks, was later then again formalized and popularized by Stephen Covey in his famous book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'm going to have a visual of the Eisenhower Matrix on the show notes page, but as you're visualizing, picture a 2x2 grid, and across the top you have urgent and not urgent in the 2 boxes from left to right at the top. And down the side, on the left-hand side, you have important on the first row and not important on the second row. So the top right, which is important but not urgent, that's where things like your strategy, growth, leadership tasks, those kind of things typically fall in that quadrant. They're important for you to do these things, but not right at this moment necessarily. But most of us, we live in the urgent quadrant, whether it's important or not important, because again, we're firefighting. It's whatever comes to us next. It's whatever problem or question someone brings us. It's whatever we observe, we jump right on that. And so instead, we need to intentionally move work into quadrant 2 and really deal with what's truly urgent. Again, to layer in big rocks are typically in that second quadrant. Important, but not urgent. Those are the things I'm planning to work on this week. They're not surprises. I've allocated time blocks perhaps to work on those things. And so those are planned activities. It's probably on my calendar ideally, not necessarily on my to-do list, although you certainly could combine the two. But this Eisenhower Matrix really is best for all of those other things that come up throughout the day, all of those other decisions that you have to make. And think about it as it applies to decisions beyond just tasks. One of the things that can help us avoid decision fatigue, where we get to the point where we just feel like I can't make another decision, is to not try to make all the decisions all the time immediately as they come to you. Prioritize them using this matrix and focus only on making the decisions that fall into that top quadrant to the left, the urgent and important quadrant. If the bulk of your day is spent putting out fires, dealing with a crisis, dealing with a deadline or something that was due yesterday, dealing with pressing issues, the fires of the day, if that's where you spend the bulk of your day, day after day, I assure you something is broken, either because you are creating a chaotic environment or something is broken in the process. Ideally, you're spending a smaller portion of your day on those important but urgent, and instead focusing on the important but not urgent, where you have the time that you need to get those things done right so that you can bring the best of you to those decisions and responsibilities. So let me tell you again about this free task management tool that you can download from the show notes page for this episode at thehowofbusiness.com. This is a tool, simple tool that you can use to help you apply the Eisenhower Matrix to your to-do list today or to decisions that come your way on a daily basis. It's not meant to replace more formal task management tools like ClickUp or Slack or anything like that, especially if you're using that in your environment to collaborate on projects. This is a simple tool for you to use to prioritize your to-dos, to help you determine what you should focus on now, what's most important and urgent. And I had the privilege of working with my son-in-law, Colin Rhoades, who actually developed this. And here's a conversation I had with him about the experience of helping me develop this idea and then also using AI to develop the tool. Colin has a great ability for things technical, but just learning, and he really applies himself in a lot of different ways. And so I challenged him recently. I wanted to come up with a task prioritization tool. And I've seen a couple of them out there that are spreadsheet-based, Excel spreadsheet-based. And so I asked him, hey, could you help me create a version of this task management tool in a spreadsheet? And he said, well, let's do one better. What if we used AI to create a tool? It's like, okay. I hadn't thought about that. So I wanted him to chat, although this episode is about task management. I just want to take a tangent here and talk about how he used AI to create this tool that is a free download that you can find on the show notes page for this episode at thehowofbusiness.com. But let me back up. When I shared to you, hey, could you help me build this tool in Excel? And of course, I came to you because I knew you had extensive Excel knowledge and you know how to use Excel. But immediately, why was it that you thought, wait a second, maybe we can build an app using AI?
Well, I knew with Excel, it would be very basic on what we could create here. And I had recently read an article of a guy creating an app through ChatGPT solely through a very basic prompt within 30 minutes. So I had that idea in my head and I wanted to explore that further. So I kind of took the concept and threw it into ChatGPT through a very basic prompt, and very quickly, I would say under an hour, I had a fairly robust version 1 working prototype of this matrix.
And it's a self-contained, we'll call it an app, right? To keep it simple.
Yes.
It runs in your browser. So it's coding, but the coding was done by ChatGPT. Is that correct?
Fully. Yeah, I have no coding experience or background.
Right.
So I've fully relied on ChatGPT to write the code. And really, it came up with the idea to write the code, right? I didn't give it any instructions, guidance. I really didn't know what it was going to do when I prompted it. And it kind of offered this suggestion in this path with the code it wrote.
Did you keep track of any estimate of how many hours it took total? I mean, obviously we went back and forth. So let me describe the process. You came up with an initial prototype and then we reviewed it. It was rough, of course, as you would imagine. But I would say even that initial version was probably 80% there. What would you say? I mean, functionality, you really haven't changed the essentials of it. It's just been fine-tuning little things. Is that fair?
That is fair. Yeah. I would say probably about 3 to 4 hours to get like the foundation built, right? And then, over the course of I would say 1 to 2 months, maybe you and I would go back and forth and work and, look for new features to add. I would say all in maybe 8 hours total.
Yeah. Amazing. In that period of time, and you were able to develop a fairly functional, robust app without having any coding knowledge or background.
It's really incredible. What this platform can do, what we can all do now. Like many, I've been enthralled with ChatGPT this year and really just trying to work it into my daily life, looking for new novel use cases.
Thanks again to Colin for all the work that he's done to develop this tool and for sharing his experience with using ChatGPT to do so. So I want to leave you with this concept of not trying to work endlessly, but to work intentionally. You simply will not be able to get everything done on your to-do list if you have any kind of a complex or typical small business. And the things that are thrown on you on a daily basis or that have to be done or the decisions that have to be made, it all rests on you or you and your partners. And if you don't apply some way of planning and then on a daily basis, some way to prioritize, you will become overwhelmed. If you're not already, it'll become frustrating. You'll start to hate doing this. You'll end up with decision fatigue and feel burnt out about your business in general. Instead, apply the Big Rocks method to weekly planning. Of course, at a higher level, it should be tied to some sort of a strategic plan and a quarterly plan. And then on a daily basis, in particular on those days when you've got a lot of things to do, a lot of decisions, quickly apply the Eisenhower Matrix as a way to prioritize. And you can use the free tool that I'm offering you, or just do it on a piece of paper, draw out the quadrants and use it at any point where you're feeling overwhelmed or you've got a long list of to-dos. Put everything in its proper quadrant to help you determine what really needs to be done next. And you'll feel like you make so much more progress on the things that matter, as opposed to feeling at the end of the day or at the end of the week, I'm exhausted, I worked like crazy, yet I don't know if it really moved the business forward. If you're feeling like that, you're not alone. It's very common to have a chaotic small business environment, but it is within your control to change it. So I encourage you to take this approach, apply these tools to help you take control over your time and to minimize, if not eliminate, the chaos in your business environment. This is Henry Lopez, and thanks for joining me on this episode of The How of Business. I wish you the best as you start and grow your successful and profitable small business. I release new episodes every Monday morning, and you can find the show anywhere you listen to podcasts, including the How of Business YouTube channel and at my website, thehowofbusiness.com. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to The How of Business. For more information about our coaching programs, online courses, show notes pages, links, and other resources, please visit thehowofbusiness.com.